The aftermath of the battle left the Galactic Council's orbital station in ruins. Smoke filled the air, and debris floated weightlessly in the zero-gravity environment. The once pristine chamber where diplomats had debated for centuries was now a scene of chaos and destruction. Yet, amidst the wreckage, there was a sense of renewal. For the first time in months, representatives from various species stood side by side, united not by shared interests, but by a common enemy, the Krylos Collective. Daniel Carter leaned against a damaged wall, his body exhausted, but his mind racing. The fight had been brutal, and the cost had been high. Many brave souls had fallen during the confrontation, including some of the council members who had sacrificed themselves to protect others. Samantha Hughes limped toward him, her face smeared with soot and her uniform torn. Despite her injuries, she managed a faint smile. "We did it," she said softly, though her voice carried a note of disbelief. Daniel nodded, too weary to speak. They had exposed the truth, rallied the galaxy, and driven back the Krylos agents, at least for now. But he knew this was only the beginning. Elena Torres joined them moments later, her hands trembling as she clutched a tablet displaying the latest reports. "The Krylos fleet is retreating," she announced, her voice steady despite the fatigue etched on her face. "But they'll be back. This was just a test, a way to gauge our strength." Her words hung heavy in the air, reminding everyone that the victory was temporary at best. The collective was still out there, watching, waiting, and planning their next move. As the survivors began cleaning up the station, an emergency meeting was called in what remained of the council chamber. Representatives gathered around a makeshift table, their expressions a mix of determination and apprehension. Laura Bennett, who had played a pivotal role in defending the council, addressed the group first. "Today we faced an enemy unlike any we've encountered before," she began, her tone somber yet resolute. "But we also discovered something else, our ability to stand together when it matters most." Her words resonated with many, but not all were ready to forgive and forget. Some species still harbored resentment toward humanity, questioning whether Earth's isolation had truly been necessary or if it had simply delayed the inevitable. A representative from the Zarnok species spoke up, his deep voice echoing through the room. "Your secrecy nearly destroyed us," he accused, pointing a finger at Daniel. "How can we trust you now?" Daniel stepped forward, his posture firm, despite the weight of scrutiny. "I understand your anger," he replied calmly. "What Earth did was wrong, and I won't defend it. But ask yourself this. Would you have believed us if we had come to you earlier? Would you have acted before it was too late?" His question silenced the room, forcing everyone to confront the uncomfortable truth. Trust had been broken, yes, but fear and skepticism had also played a part in dividing them. Samantha added her voice to the conversation. "This isn't about assigning blame anymore. It's about moving forward. The Krylos Collective doesn't care about our differences. They see us as one target. If we don't unite, they'll pick us off one by one until there's nothing left." Her words struck a chord, and slowly, the mood shifted. One by one, representatives rose to pledge their support, not just for humanity, but for the survival of the galaxy. Even those who had doubted Earth's intentions acknowledged that standing divided was no longer an option. Elena guided the discussion, ensuring that every voice was heard and every concern addressed. By the end of the meeting, a fragile alliance had been forged, held together by the shared goal of defeating the Krylos threat. Back on Earth, President Rachel Monroe watched the broadcast of the Council's renewed unity with mixed emotions. She had always believed that cutting ties with the galaxy was the right decision, but seeing the consequences of her actions weighed heavily on her. Protests continued across the planet, with citizens demanding transparency and accountability. Nathan Drake's articles had ignited a firestorm of public outrage, and calls for Rachel's resignation grew louder each day. Rachel sat alone in her office, staring at the holographic display of the council's proceedings. Vice President Alan Harper entered quietly, his expression unreadable. "You should step down," he said bluntly. "The people need someone they can trust." Rachel sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Do you think stepping aside will solve anything? The galaxy needs leadership, Alan, not more division." "Then lead differently," Alan countered. "Be honest with them. Show them that you're willing to work with the council, not against it." After a long pause, Rachel nodded. She knew Alan was right. Hiding behind secrecy had brought them to the brink of disaster, and continuing down that path would only make things worse. With a heavy heart, she drafted a public address, vowing to share everything she knew about the Krylos Collective and to cooperate fully with the newly reformed council. Meanwhile, Daniel, Samantha, and Elena worked tirelessly to prepare for the next phase of the conflict. Using the evidence they had gathered, they identified key systems and planets vulnerable to Krylos infiltration. Military forces from across the galaxy coordinated their efforts, pooling resources and intelligence to create a unified defense strategy. Scientists collaborated on developing countermeasures to neutralize the collective's advanced technology, while diplomats worked to mend fractured relationships and build trust. Despite these efforts, tensions lingered. Old rivalries and grudges refused to fade completely, threatening to undermine the fragile alliance. Laura Bennett, in particular, struggled to reconcile her past actions with her newfound role as a leader within the council. She sought out Daniel privately, her demeanor uncharacteristically humble. "I owe you an apology," she admitted. "I let my pride blind me, and because of that, I almost doomed us all." Daniel studied her for a moment before responding. "Apologies are easy. What matters is what you do next. Will you help us rebuild? Or will you go back to the way things were?" Laura met his gaze, her resolve hardening. "I'll help. For better or worse, this is my responsibility now." As weeks turned into months, the galaxy prepared for the inevitable return of the Krylos Collective. Training exercises became routine, and supply lines were fortified to ensure readiness. Humanity, once viewed with suspicion and distrust, gradually earned back some measure of respect. Their willingness to share knowledge and resources demonstrated a commitment to unity that few had expected. In the final days before the anticipated attack, Daniel found himself reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about the sacrifices made, the friendships forged, and the lessons learned. Standing on the observation deck of the council's station, he gazed out at the stars, feeling both awe and dread. The galaxy was vast and beautiful, but it was also fragile, a delicate balance easily shattered by fear and greed. Samantha joined him, her presence a comforting reminder of how far they had come. "Are you ready?" she asked quietly. Daniel smiled faintly. "Ready as I'll ever be." When the Krylos fleet finally returned, it was with a force greater than anyone had anticipated. Ships numbering in the thousands descended upon the outer rim of human territory, their weapons charged and their intentions clear. The battle that followed was fierce and unrelenting, testing the limits of the newly formed alliance. But this time. The galaxy fought as one. Earth's military led the charge, supported by fleets from dozens of alien species. Together, they pushed back against the invaders, using every tactic and weapon at their disposal. The tide turned when scientists successfully deployed a prototype device designed to disrupt the collective's cloaking technology. Without their advantage of stealth, the Krylos ships faltered, giving the Allied forces the upper hand. By the time the dust settled, the Krylos fleet had been decimated. Though the victory came at great cost, it marked a turning point in the galaxy's history. For the first time, disparate species had set aside their differences and worked together to achieve a common goal. The scars of betrayal and mistrust would take years to heal, but the foundation for a brighter future had been laid. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council reconvened to honor those who had fallen and celebrate their hard-won triumph. Daniel stood before the assembly, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. Today, we proved that unity is stronger than division, that hope can overcome fear. Let this be the beginning of a new era, one where we stand together, not as separate peoples, but as one galaxy. His words were met with applause, a sound that echoed through the chamber and into the hearts of everyone present. As the meeting concluded, Daniel felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The road ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time, he believed that the galaxy had a chance to thrive, not just survive. And so, under the light of countless stars, the galaxy began to heal. The fractures caused by mistrust and isolation slowly mended, replaced by bonds forged in the fires of adversity. Humanity, once isolated and misunderstood, emerged as a vital part of a united front. Though the shadow of the Krylos Collective loomed large, the galaxy faced it with courage and determination, knowing that together they could overcome anything. Daniel Carter stood in the dimly lit corridor of Earth's Defense Initiative headquarters, his mind racing. The weight of what he was about to do pressed heavily on him. He had spent weeks gathering evidence about the Krylos Collective, piecing together fragments of information that painted a terrifying picture. Now, with Samantha Hughes by his side, he was preparing to leave Earth for the last time. Their destination was the Galactic Council's orbital headquarters, where they hoped to expose the truth and rally the galaxy against the looming threat. The journey to the Council's station was fraught with danger. Earth's isolation had made it a target, and Krylos agents were everywhere. Daniel and Samantha knew they couldn't trust anyone, not even their own people. As they boarded a small, unmarked shuttle, they exchanged uneasy glances. Neither spoke aloud, but the tension between them was palpable. They both understood the risks. If they were caught, they would be branded traitors, not just by Earth's government, but by the entire galaxy. Elena Torres awaited them at the Council's station. She had managed to secure temporary clearance for their arrival, using her position as a mediator to argue that their mission was critical to galactic security. When the shuttle docked, Elena greeted them with a mixture of relief and anxiety. "You're late," she whispered as they stepped off the craft. "Things are getting worse. The collective is making its move." Daniel nodded grimly. "We have the evidence, but we need to act fast." The trio moved quickly through the station, avoiding main corridors and sticking to maintenance tunnels. Every step felt like a gamble. They knew the Krylos Collective had spies embedded within the Council, and one wrong move could expose their plan. Samantha carried a data chip containing the evidence they had gathered, files, recordings, and intercepted transmissions that proved the Collective's influence. It was their only hope of convincing the Council to unite against the threat. They neared the Council chamber. They encountered their first obstacle. A group of armed guards blocked their path, demanding identification. Elena stepped forward, her voice steady, despite the fear in her eyes. "These individuals are here under my authority. They have crucial information regarding an imminent threat to the galaxy." Her tone left no room for argument, but the guards hesitated, clearly unsure whether to comply. Before the situation could escalate, Daniel intervened. "If you delay us, you're risking the lives of everyone on this station and beyond. Do you really want that responsibility?" His words struck a chord, and after a tense moment, the guards reluctantly stepped aside. Inside the Council chamber, chaos reigned. Representatives from various species argued loudly, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of anger and frustration. Laura Bennett stood at the center of it all, her expression cold and calculating. She had taken control of the Council in the absence of unity, positioning herself as a leader among the fractured factions. To Daniel, she looked more like a puppet than ever before, a figurehead manipulated by forces she didn't fully understand. Elena led the way to the podium, her presence commanding attention. "Silence!" she called out, her voice cutting through the noise. Slowly, the room quieted and all eyes turned to her. "We have evidence that will change everything you know about the current crisis. Listen carefully, because the survival of the galaxy depends on it." Daniel stepped forward, his heart pounding. He inserted the data chip into the Council's main console, and the screen behind him flickered to life. Images and documents appeared, detailing the Krylos Collective's infiltration of the Council and their plans for domination. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs as the truth unfolded before their eyes. Laura's face went pale, and for the first time, she seemed genuinely shaken. "This is impossible," she stammered, her composure crumbling. "How could this happen without our knowledge?" "It happened because you allowed it," Daniel replied, his voice firm. "The collective has been manipulating you, turning you against each other, weakening your alliances. They wanted you divided so they could strike when you were most vulnerable." The revelation hit the Council like a tidal wave. Accusations flew as representatives turned on one another, some demanding answers while others denied any involvement. Amid the turmoil, Elena raised her hands, calling for calm. "This isn't about blame," she said. "It's about action. If we don't stand together now, the Krylos Collective will destroy us all." Her words resonated with many, but not everyone was convinced. Some species, still harboring resentment toward humanity, refused to believe that Earth's isolation had been anything but selfishness. Others questioned the authenticity of the evidence, claiming it could be fabricated. The room teetered on, the edge of collapse, and Daniel knew they were running out of time. Samantha stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "If you won't trust us, then look at the facts. The collective is already here. Their ships are massing near human territory, and their agents are among you. You can fight amongst yourselves, or you can join forces to stop them. The choice is yours." Her plea seemed to break through the skepticism. Slowly, the room began to settle, and a fragile sense of unity emerged. Laura, still reeling from the exposure of her role as a pawn, finally spoke. "If what you say is true, then we have no choice but to act. But how can we fight an enemy? We barely understand." "We fight together," Elena said firmly. "Earth may have isolated itself, but it did so to protect us all. Now it's time to put aside our differences and focus on the greater threat." As the Council debated their next steps, disaster struck. Alarms blared throughout the station, and red lights flashed overhead. "Intruders detected," a robotic voice announced. "Security breach in progress." The Krylos Collective had arrived. Panic spread through the chamber as shadowy figures materialized, their forms shimmering with an otherworldly energy. They moved with precision, targeting key council members and disabling communication systems. Daniel, Samantha, and Elena found themselves surrounded, their escape routes cut off. For a moment, it seemed like all hope was lost. But then, something unexpected happened. Laura Bennett, who had spent weeks vilifying humanity, stepped forward to confront the intruders. "You will not take this council," she declared, her voice filled with defiance. With a swift motion, she activated a hidden mechanism in her wristband, releasing a pulse of energy that disrupted the Krylos agents' cloaking devices. The attackers faltered, giving the Council precious seconds to regroup. Seizing the opportunity, Samantha sprang into action. She grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and fired at the nearest Krylos agent, her aim true. The alien staggered back, its form destabilizing before it vanished entirely. Inspired by her bravery, others joined the fight, using whatever weapons they could find to defend themselves. Amid the chaos, Daniel focused on the console, uploading the evidence to the Council's public network. If they were going to die here, at least the truth would survive. As the data transfer completed, he turned to see Elena shielding a group of frightened delegates, her body trembling but resolute. "Get them to safety," he shouted, pointing toward an emergency exit. Elena nodded and ushered the delegates away, leaving Daniel and Samantha to hold the line. Together, they fought valiantly, taking down one Krylos agent after another. But the tide was turning against them. Reinforcements poured into the chamber, overwhelming the defenders. Just as it seemed like the end, a deafening roar echoed through the station. From the shadows emerged a fleet of human fighter ships, led by Vice President Alan Harper. Earth's military had arrived, responding to the distress signal Daniel had sent earlier. The sight of humanity's forces reignited hope among the council members, who rallied to push back the invaders. In the ensuing battle, the Krylos agents were driven back, retreating into the depths of space. When the dust settled, the council chamber was in ruins, but the spirit of unity had been reignited. Laura Bennett approached Daniel, her expression a mix of gratitude and shame. "I misjudged you," she admitted. "And I misjudged Earth. For that, I am sorry." Daniel accepted her apology with a nod, knowing that forgiveness was the first step toward rebuilding trust. Together, the Council vowed to work alongside humanity to counter the Krylos threat. It wouldn't be easy, and the scars of betrayal would take time to heal, but for the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of hope. As Daniel gazed out at the stars, he felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever before. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but he knew that as long as they stood together, the galaxy had a chance to survive. As the days turned into weeks, the galaxy remained in a state of uneasy tension. Earth's sudden isolation had created a void that no one knew how to fill. Alien species who had once relied on humanity for trade and technological exchange now found themselves scrambling to adapt. The Galactic Council, once a beacon of cooperation and unity, was reduced to a fractured shell of its former self. Accusations flew back and forth, and trust between species eroded with each passing day. Amid this chaos, whispers of a greater threat began to surface. Nathan Drake, the journalist who had been digging into Earth's secrets, became more determined than ever to uncover the truth. He had always prided himself on his ability to sniff out lies and half-truths, but this story was unlike anything he had tackled before. It wasn't just about exposing corruption or holding leaders accountable. It was about survival. Nathan's instincts told him that something far bigger was at play, something that could affect not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Late one night, while combing through encrypted files and classified documents, Nathan stumbled upon a name that sent chills down his spine: the Krylos Collective. At first, he thought it might be another conspiracy theory, the kind of rumor that spread quickly in times of crisis. But the more he read, the more he realized that this was no ordinary group. According to the documents, the Krylos Collective was an enigmatic faction with vast resources and unimaginable power. They operated in the shadows, manipulating events across the galaxy to serve their own mysterious agenda. What made them truly terrifying was their ability to infiltrate even the highest levels of government and leadership. Nathan's discovery coincided with mounting evidence that the Krylos Collective had already begun influencing the Galactic Council. Several council members, including Laura Bennett, had been acting strangely in recent months. Their decisions, once guided by logic and diplomacy, now seemed erratic and self-serving. It was as if they were puppets, controlled by strings invisible to the naked eye. Nathan couldn't prove it yet, but he suspected that the collective had planted agents within the council, using them to sow discord and weaken alliances. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Samantha Hughes grew increasingly concerned about the situation. As head of Earth's Defense Initiative, she had access to classified information that most people could only dream of seeing. But even she was unprepared for what she found when she delved deeper into the data. Reports from deep space probes indicated unusual activity near the edges of human territory. Strange signals, too complex to be natural phenomena, pulsed through the void, hinting at the presence of advanced technology. Samantha immediately recognized the implications. The Krylos Collective was closer than anyone had anticipated. Samantha shared her findings with Daniel Carter, who had become both an ally and a confidant in the wake of Earth's isolation. Together, they pieced together a grim picture. The collective wasn't just observing humanity from afar, they were preparing to strike. Every decision Rachel Monroe had made, every order she had given, suddenly made sense. Cutting off communication with the rest of the galaxy wasn't an act of arrogance. It was a desperate attempt to protect humanity from an enemy they barely understood. But not everyone agreed with Rachel's approach. Public opinion on Earth was divided. Some citizens praised her decisiveness, believing that she was doing what was necessary to keep them safe. Others saw her actions as reckless and authoritarian, arguing that isolating Earth only made them more vulnerable. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds chanting slogans like "Transparency now" and "No more secrets." Journalists, like Nathan Drake, fueled the fire, publishing articles that questioned Rachel's motives and demanded accountability. The pressure on Rachel grew unbearable. She spent long hours in closed-door meetings with her advisors, debating the best course of action. Her closest allies urged her to come clean, to reveal the truth about the Krylos Collective and rally the galaxy against a common enemy. But Rachel hesitated. She knew that exposing the collective's existence would cause panic, not just on Earth, but across the stars. Once the information went public, there would be no turning back. Species that had long distrusted humanity might see this as an opportunity to attack, believing that Earth's isolation was a sign of weakness. Rachel's reluctance to share the truth caused friction within her own administration. Vice President Alan Harper, a pragmatic man with a reputation for caution, argued that transparency was the only way forward. "You can't keep the galaxy in the dark forever," he told Rachel during one particularly heated meeting. "If we don't act soon, we'll lose whatever chance we have left to unite against this threat." Rachel listened silently, her face unreadable. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but firm. "I understand your concerns, Alan, but we're not ready. Revealing the collective's existence without a plan will only make things worse. We need time to prepare, to strengthen our defenses and figure out how to counter their influence." Alan shook his head, clearly frustrated. "Time is a luxury we don't have. Every day we delay, the collective grows stronger. If we wait too long, it might be too late." Their disagreement reflected a broader divide within Earth's leadership. Some, like Alan, believed that honesty and cooperation were the keys to survival. Others, like Rachel, thought that secrecy and preparation were the only ways to ensure humanity's safety. Caught in the middle of this ideological battle was Daniel, who found himself torn between loyalty to Rachel and his growing belief that the truth needed to come out. While Earth grappled with internal conflict, alien nations continued to speculate about humanity's intentions. Among these doubters was Elena Torres, a mediator representing neutral planets. Elena had always been a voice of reason within the Galactic Council, advocating for dialogue and understanding. But even she struggled to reconcile Earth's actions with the principles of unity she held dear. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than met the eye. Elena decided to take matters into her own hands. Using her connections within the Council, she arranged a secret meeting with Daniel Carter. The location was Europa 7, a remote moon base that served as a neutral zone for diplomatic negotiations. Daniel agreed to the meeting, knowing it was a risky move. Traveling to Europa 7 without official clearance could be seen as treason, but he felt he had no choice. If there was any hope of bridging the gap between Earth and the rest of the galaxy, It lay in conversations like this. When Daniel arrived at the moon base, he was greeted by Elena, who looked both nervous and resolute. They sat down in a small, dimly lit room, the hum of machinery providing a constant backdrop to their conversation. Elena wasted no time getting to the point. Daniel, I need to know the truth. Why has Earth cut itself off? What are you hiding? Daniel hesitated, unsure of how much he should reveal. Finally, he took a deep breath and began to speak. He told Elena about the Krylos Collective, about the strange signals detected near human territory, and about Rachel's fears of an impending invasion. As he spoke, Elena's expression shifted from skepticism to alarm. By the time he finished, she was visibly shaken. "This changes everything," Elena said quietly. "If what you're saying is true, then the collective isn't just a threat to Earth, it's a threat to all of us." Daniel nodded. "That's why we need your help. If we can expose the collective's influence within the Council, maybe we can unite the galaxy against them." Elena thought for a moment, weighing the risks and rewards. "It won't be easy," she said finally. "Many species won't trust you after what's happened. But if we present solid evidence, undeniable proof, we might have a chance." Together, they devised a plan. Daniel would return to Earth and gather as much evidence as possible about the Krylos Collective's activities. Meanwhile, Elena would work behind the scenes, rallying support among neutral planets and loyal Council members. If everything went according to plan, they would present their findings to the Council and demand action. As Daniel prepared to leave Europa 7, he felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. The road ahead would be dangerous, fraught with challenges and uncertainties. But for the first time, he had allies, people who believed in the same vision of unity and cooperation that he did. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for certain. The fate of the galaxy depended on their success. Back on Earth, Nathan Drake published a groundbreaking article that sent shockwaves through the population. Drawing on leaked documents and insider sources, he revealed Rachel Monroe's knowledge of the Krylos Collective and her refusal to share it with the public. The article painted Rachel as a leader willing to sacrifice transparency for the sake of control, sparking outrage and protests across the globe. For Daniel, the timing couldn't have been worse. Just as he was beginning to piece together the puzzle, the world turned its gaze inward, consumed by anger and distrust. Yet amidst the chaos, Daniel pressed on. He knew that uncovering the truth was only the first step. The real challenge lay in convincing others to believe it and to act before it was too late. In the year 2347, humanity had reached a point where it was no longer just one species among many in the galaxy. It had become a dominant force, respected and sometimes feared by other civilizations. For centuries, the Galactic Council had been the governing body that kept peace and order across the stars. This council was made up of representatives from various alien species, each bringing their own ideas, technologies, and cultures to the table. Humans, though latecomers to this interstellar community, quickly rose in influence. They were known for their ambition, innovation, and determination. But beneath the surface of cooperation, tensions simmered. Daniel Carter was one of the key figures trying to hold things together. He was a human diplomat, well known for his sharp mind and unwavering principles. Daniel had spent years working within the Galactic Council, striving to build bridges between humans and other species. He believed deeply in the idea of unity and mutual respect. Yet, despite his efforts, cracks were beginning to show. Accusations flew back and forth, and trust between humans and their allies grew thinner with each passing day. The problem started with whispers. Alien ambassadors began talking about how humans were not playing fair. Some claimed that Earth's leaders were secretly hoarding advanced technology, refusing to share it with the rest of the Council. These rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by jealousy and suspicion. Laura Bennett, a council member representing the Varnic species, was one of the loudest voices against humanity. The Varnics were a proud and ancient race, known for their wisdom and calm demeanor. But even they could not hide their frustration. Laura stood before the council one day, her voice firm as she accused Earth of sabotage. She demanded that the council be given access to classified human databases to verify whether these accusations were true. President Rachel Monroe, the leader of Earth, listened carefully to Laura's words. She sat quietly at the council's grand circular table, her expression unreadable. When it was her turn to speak, Rachel's tone was polite but firm. She explained that Earth's technological advancements were the result of hard work and sacrifice. Sharing them freely would put humanity at risk, she argued. The room fell silent as Rachel delivered her final statement. Earth would not comply with the Council's demands. Instead, she announced that all communication lines between humans and non-human entities would be severed immediately. The decision shocked everyone. Never before had a council member taken such an extreme step. Within hours, every channel connecting Earth to the rest of the galaxy went dark. Diplomatic messages stopped mid-transmission. Trade routes were abandoned. Even personal communications between humans and aliens ceased completely. The galaxy was left reeling. Alien ambassadors scrambled to make sense of what had happened. Some speculated that Rachel's actions were a sign of arrogance, proof that humans thought they were better than everyone else. Others wondered if there was more to the story. Perhaps Earth was hiding something far bigger than anyone realized. Back on Earth, Daniel Carter struggled to come to terms with what had happened. He had always believed in the importance of diplomacy and open dialogue. Cutting off communication felt like a betrayal of everything he stood for, but deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that Rachel's decision wasn't born out of pride or selfishness. There had to be another reason. Something. She wasn't sharing with the rest of the galaxy, or even with her own people. Daniel knew he needed answers, but getting them wouldn't be easy. As days turned into weeks, the consequences of Rachel's decision became clearer. Alien nations began taking sides. Some supported Earth, believing that Rachel must have had a good reason for her actions. Others condemned humanity, calling for sanctions, or even military action. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Some claimed that Earth was planning to conquer the galaxy. Others whispered about secret experiments or forbidden knowledge hidden away in Earth's underground facilities. Amid all the chaos, one thing was certain. The Galactic Council, once a symbol of unity, was now fractured beyond repair. Laura Bennett was furious. She saw Rachel's move as an act of war, plain and simple. "This is not diplomacy," she told her fellow council members during an emergency meeting. "This is isolationism. Humanity has chosen to cut itself off from the rest of us, and we cannot allow this behavior to go unchecked." Her words resonated with many, especially those who had long harbored resentment toward humans. The council debated endlessly, but no solution emerged. Without Earth's participation, the council seemed powerless to act. On Earth, life continued as usual for most people. News outlets covered the fallout extensively, but the average citizen didn't feel the immediate impact of Rachel's decision. Grocery stores remained stocked, schools stayed open, and businesses operated without interruption. However, behind the scenes, preparations were underway. Military bases buzzed with activity as troops trained for potential conflict. Scientists worked around the clock, analyzing data and developing new technologies. Government officials held closed-door meetings, discussing strategies and contingency plans. Daniel found himself caught in the middle of it all. As a diplomat, he was expected to support Rachel's decision, but his conscience wouldn't let him stay silent. He began asking questions, reaching out to old contacts within the government and military. At first, he received vague answers and dismissive responses. But then, something changed. A trusted colleague slipped him a piece of information, a single name. Krylos Collective. Daniel had never heard of them before, but the way his colleague spoke about them sent chills down his spine. "If you value your life," the man had said, "don't dig too deep." Despite the warning, Daniel couldn't ignore what he had learned. He started researching the Krylos Collective in secret, piecing together fragments of information from classified files and encrypted messages. What he discovered terrified him. The Krylos Collective was not just another alien species, it was a shadowy organization rumored to possess unimaginable power. Whispers suggested that they had been manipulating events across the galaxy for decades, sowing discord and weakening alliances. If the rumors were true, then Rachel's decision to sever ties might have been less about arrogance and more about survival. But Daniel wasn't the only one looking for answers. Nathan Drake, a journalist known for his relentless pursuit of the truth, had also picked up on the story. Unlike Daniel, Nathan had no qualms about going public with what he found. His articles appeared in major news outlets, sparking outrage and debate. People began questioning Rachel's leadership, demanding transparency. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, holding signs that read, "We deserve the truth," and "No more secrets." The pressure mounted, forcing Rachel to address the nation. In a televised speech, Rachel acknowledged the growing unrest. She admitted that Earth faced a grave threat but refused to provide details. "Trust me," she pleaded with the camera. "What I am doing is for the good of humanity. I cannot say more without putting us all at risk." Her words did little to quell the anger. Critics accused her of hiding behind vague statements, while supporters urged patience, trusting that Rachel knew what she was doing. As the days passed, Daniel grew increasingly conflicted. He wanted to believe in Rachel's vision, but doubt gnawed at him. Was she truly acting in humanity's best interest, or was she playing a dangerous game? And if the Krylos Collective was real, why hadn't anyone spoken about them before? The questions swirled in his mind, keeping him awake at night. One thing was clear: the galaxy as he knew it was changing, and there was no turning back. Daniel decided to take matters into his own hands. He reached out to an old friend, Samantha Hughes, who now headed Earth's Defense Initiative. Samantha was skeptical at first, wary of Daniel's intentions, but when he shared what he had uncovered about the Krylos Collective, her skepticism turned to concern. Together, they agreed to investigate further, knowing full well that they were risking their careers and possibly their lives. Their search led them to a secure facility buried deep beneath the Arctic ice. Here, scientists worked tirelessly on projects shrouded in secrecy. Daniel and Samantha managed to gain access using forged credentials. What they found inside left them speechless. Rows of monitors displayed maps of star systems, marked with red zones indicating areas of high Krylos activity. Files detailed covert operations aimed at countering the collective's influence. It was clear that Earth's leadership had known about the threat for some time and had chosen to keep it hidden. Armed with this knowledge, Daniel faced a difficult choice. Should he expose the truth and risk plunging the galaxy into chaos? Or should he remain silent, trusting that Rachel had a plan to handle the situation? The weight of the decision bore down on him, heavier than ever. Whatever path he chose, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy was beginning to heal, but scars from the war remained. Cities on Earth still bore the marks of alien attacks, and colonies in distant star systems struggled to recover from years of conflict. Despite these challenges, there was a sense of cautious optimism. For the first time in history, humans and aliens worked side by side to rebuild what had been lost. The provisional government, led by representatives from dozens of species, held its first official meeting aboard a neutral space station orbiting Mars. It was a fragile alliance, but one built on mutual respect and shared goals. Rachel Monroe stood at the center of this new era, her role evolving from whistleblower to peacemaker. She spent countless hours mediating disputes between former enemies, helping them find common ground. Her calm demeanor and unwavering determination earned her the trust of many. Daniel Carter joined her efforts, using his experience as a counsel, representative to bridge gaps between different cultures. Together, they became symbols of unity, a reminder that even the deepest divides could be overcome with patience and understanding. But not everyone welcomed the changes. Cale Vorn's supporters, though diminished in number, refused to accept defeat. They operated in secret, plotting to restore the old order. Their leader, a shadowy figure known only as the Architect, believed the provisional government was weak and destined to fail. To prove their point, they launched a series of sabotage missions targeting key infrastructure across the galaxy. Power grids failed, communication networks went dark, and supply chains were disrupted. Panic spread as people wondered if the war would reignite. Ethan Blake felt the weight of these attacks more than anyone else. As head of Earth's recovery efforts, he was responsible for ensuring stability during this critical period. Each new act of sabotage set progress back weeks, sometimes months. Frustration mounted among civilians who demanded answers and action. Ethan knew he couldn't let fear take hold. "We can't give up now," he told Claire Bennett during one of their late-night strategy sessions. "If we do, we're playing right into their hands." Claire nodded, her sharp eyes scanning reports of recent incidents. "They're trying to break us, to make us turn on each other. We need to show them it won't work." Their solution was simple, yet effective: transparency. Instead of hiding the attacks or downplaying their impact, Ethan and Claire decided to share everything they knew with the public. Through broadcasts and town hall meetings, they explained the situation clearly and offered practical steps people could take to stay safe. This openness helped ease tensions and fostered a spirit of cooperation. Communities came together to repair damaged facilities, sharing resources and expertise. Slowly but surely, life began to stabilize. Meanwhile, Alex Turner found himself drawn into the fight against the Architect. His skills as a pilot made him invaluable to a special task force assembled to track down the saboteurs. Alongside a diverse team of soldiers and engineers, he traveled to some of the most dangerous corners of the galaxy, following leads and gathering intelligence. It wasn't easy. The saboteurs were cunning and well-organized, but Alex thrived under pressure. He had always been someone who rose to the occasion, and this mission was no exception. One night, while investigating a suspected hideout on a remote moon, Alex and his team discovered something shocking: blueprints for a weapon, unlike anything they'd ever seen. Dubbed Project Reckoning, it was designed to destabilize entire star systems, rendering them uninhabitable. The plans were incomplete, but it was clear the Architect intended to finish them and use the weapon to seize control of the galaxy. "This changes everything," Alex said, staring at the schematics. "If they build this thing, there won't be any stopping them." His commander agreed. "We need to shut them down before they get that far, but we'll have to move fast." Back at the Provisional Government headquarters, Rachel and Daniel received an urgent message from Alex's team. After reviewing the evidence, they realized the threat was far greater than anyone had anticipated. If Project Reckoning succeeded, all their hard work would be undone. There was no choice but to act immediately. Rachel took charge of the diplomatic response, reaching out to allied species for support. She emphasized the importance of cooperation, reminding them that the galaxy's survival depended on their ability to work together. Her words resonated deeply, and within days, reinforcements arrived from across the stars. Ships, supplies, and personnel poured in, strengthening humanity's position. Daniel focused on rallying Earth itself. He traveled to cities around the globe, speaking directly to citizens about the stakes involved. "This isn't just about stopping the Architect," he told a crowd gathered in New York City. It's about proving that we can face any challenge, as long as we stand united. As preparations continued, Alex and his team tracked the architect's operations to a heavily fortified base hidden deep within an asteroid belt. Breaking through its defenses would require precision and coordination. Plans were drawn up, and volunteers stepped forward, knowing the risks involved. Among them was Marcus Lane, who had grown close to Rachel over the past months. Though not a soldier by training, he insisted on joining the mission. "I've fought this fight from the shadows long enough," he said. "It's time I did my part." The assault began under cover of darkness. Alex led the initial wave, guiding his ship through treacherous debris fields while evading enemy patrols. Once inside the base, the team split into smaller groups, each tasked with disabling specific systems. Explosions rocked the facility as battles erupted throughout its corridors. Despite overwhelming odds, the attackers pushed forward, driven by a shared sense of purpose. Marcus played a crucial role in the final stages of the mission. Using his knowledge of encryption, he hacked into the base's central computer, deleting vital data related to Project Reckoning. Just as he finished, alarms blared, signaling the arrival of reinforcements. "Go!" he shouted to Alex, who hesitated for a moment before retreating. Marcus stayed behind, ensuring the deletion process completed before the system could be restored. When the dust settled, the base was in ruins, and Project Reckoning was no more. Alex and his surviving teammates returned to their ships, hearts heavy with loss but spirits buoyed by victory. Marcus's sacrifice weighed heavily on them all, but they knew he had given his life for something greater than himself. In the aftermath, the galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief. The architect's network was dismantled, and its leaders brought to justice. People celebrated the end of another chapter in their struggle for peace, though they understood the journey was far from over. Challenges would always arise, but so, too, would opportunities for growth and connection. For Rachel, Daniel, Ethan, Claire, and Alex, the future held promise. They had faced unimaginable hardships and emerged stronger because of it. Together, they had proven that even in the darkest times, hope could light the way forward. And as they looked out at the stars, they knew the galaxy's story was only just beginning. The aftermath of the battle above Saturn's rings left the galaxy in a state of shock. The Council's once unstoppable fleet had been defeated, its ships scattered and broken. For the first time in decades, the Council's dominance was called into question. Alien species who had long feared or resented their rule began to speak out, demanding answers and accountability. Cale Vorn, the Supreme Chancellor, faced mounting pressure from within his own ranks. Some accused him of leading them to disaster. Others whispered of betrayal. The cracks in the Council's foundation were widening, threatening to bring the entire structure crashing down. On Earth, the mood was somber despite the victory. The cost of the battle weighed heavily on everyone. Families mourned their lost loved ones, and soldiers struggled to process the horrors they had witnessed. Ethan Blake walked through the command center, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. He had spent days coordinating repairs and organizing relief efforts for the wounded. Claire Bennett stood nearby, her usual composure faltering as she watched. The toll the war had taken on those around her. "We did what we had to do," Claire said softly, breaking the silence. "But I don't think anyone feels like celebrating." Ethan shook his head. "No one should. Winning a battle doesn't mean we've won the war. They'll come back stronger next time." Claire nodded, her expression grim. "Then we keep fighting. We find new ways to protect ourselves and each other." As the human forces regrouped, Rachel Monroe and Marcus Lane continued their mission to expose the Council's corruption. Their broadcasts reached more systems than ever before, sparking protests and uprisings on planets loyal to the Council. In some places, local governments declared independence, refusing to follow Cale Vorn's orders. The coalition Rachel had built grew larger by the day, drawing in allies from across the galaxy. Even former council members joined their cause, disillusioned by the destruction wrought in the name of control. Daniel Carter played a crucial role in rallying support for humanity. Using his connections and reputation, he traveled to neutral territories, speaking to leaders and citizens alike. His message was simple: the galaxy deserved better than fear and oppression. "This isn't about humans versus aliens," he told a crowd gathered on a distant colony world. "It's about choosing peace over war, freedom over tyranny. Together, we can build something better." His words resonated deeply, inspiring many to take a stand against the Council. Slowly but surely, the balance of power began to shift. The Council's grip on the galaxy weakened as more species turned their backs on Cale Vorn's leadership. Back aboard the Elysium Dawn, tensions boiled over. Cale Vorn called an emergency meeting of the remaining Council members, hoping to regain control of the situation. But instead of unity, he found division. Accusations flew as representatives argued over who was responsible for the failures that had led them here. Some demanded immediate retaliation against Earth. Others pushed for negotiations to prevent further bloodshed. Rachel Monroe seized the opportunity to deliver her final blow. With the help of Daniel and Marcus, she leaked classified documents, detailing every aspect of the Eclipse operation, from its inception to its disastrous end. The revelations confirmed what many had suspected. The Council had planned not just to weaken Earth, but to enslave it, stripping humanity of its technology and resources while leaving its people vulnerable. The truth sparked outrage across the galaxy, turning even the Council's staunchest supporters against it. Cale Vorn tried to deny the allegations, claiming they were fabricated by humanity to undermine the Council's authority. But the evidence was undeniable, and his denials fell on deaf ears. One by one, Council members abandoned him, calling for his resignation. Cornered and desperate, Cale gave the order to launch a last-ditch attack on Earth, a kamikaze strike intended to destroy humanity once and for all. When news of the plan reached Ethan and Claire, they knew they couldn't afford to wait. Every available ship was mobilized and reinforcements poured in from allied colonies. Alex Turner volunteered to lead a daring mission to intercept the Council's flagship before it could reach Earth. Alongside a small team of elite pilots, he prepared for what might be his final flight. The interception took place near Jupiter, where the Council's flagship emerged from hyperspace. Alex and his squadron launched immediately, weaving through enemy fire as they closed in on the massive vessel. It wasn't easy. The flagship was heavily armed and shielded, but Alex's quick thinking and precise maneuvers allowed them to disable its engines. With the ship immobilized, Alex transmitted a signal to the rest of the fleet, marking its location for the main assault. The combined human coalition forces arrived moments later, surrounding the flagship and forcing it to surrender. Cale Vorn was captured, along with several high-ranking officials. As the flagship's crew stood down, the Council's reign came to an abrupt and humiliating end. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began the long process of rebuilding. A provisional government was formed consisting of representatives from both human and alien species. Its goal was to create a new system, one based on cooperation rather than control. Rachel Monroe and Daniel Carter played key roles in shaping this new era, working tirelessly to ensure that the mistakes of the past wouldn't be repeated. For Ethan Blake and Claire Bennett, life slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could be after such a monumental conflict. Ethan stepped away from his role as head of global security, choosing instead to focus on rebuilding communities affected by the war. Claire remained active in politics, advocating for policies that prioritized peace and innovation. Alex Turner became a symbol of hope for many, his bravery during the final battle earning him widespread recognition. Though he preferred to stay out of the spotlight, he couldn't deny the impact his actions had made. "I didn't do anything special," he often said when asked about his heroics. "I just did what needed to be done." As the galaxy moved forward, humanity's place within it had changed forever. No longer seen as newcomers or outsiders, Humans were now respected as equals, partners in a shared future. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, there was genuine optimism. Together, the galaxy had taken its first steps toward a brighter tomorrow.